folks, welcome to the Flipside and another Two Dudes Reviews. I'm Sam.
I'm JT.
And today we're going to take a look at this bad boy right here, Last Light. Designed by some cat called Roy Cannaday. What kind of a name is Roy Cannaday?
It's a pretty normal name, I think.
Is it normal?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's kind of a strange cat. Anyway, he's a good friend of mine. We're going to take a look at this. We're going to give you a basic idea of how the game plays. And then JT and I will share our final thoughts and pros and cons at the end. So let's get down to the table. All right, as we begin talking about Last Light, remember that it is a game for 2 to 4 players. If you have all the extra stuff that Gray Fox has available for it, you can actually take this up to 8 players. But we're just showing you a 2-player game right now, and this is a 2-player setup as shown by the rule book. Now, the game uses a simultaneous action selection where you're going to have these action cards in your hand, and on your turn, you'll basically choose one of them, and you'll play it face down, and everybody reveals at the same time, and then generally speaking, unless it's a command card, you will be able to simultaneously carry out your actions. If I play a research and my opponent plays construct, then he can construct his stuff while I do my research actions. And then once we're both done, we choose another card to play. And of course, we play it face down and then we flip it over at the same time. And we can do things simultaneously. If, however, one of us plays a command card, then we have to go in turn order. That's what this is used for, is to determine who is the first player of every round, and then command cards are carried out in turn order, going in clockwise formation. At any point in time, when you have played at least one other action card, you can play your refresh card. And your refresh card will basically allow you to take any of the action cards that you've played back up into your hand. But the refresh card stays on the table so that everybody can see who has played their refresh cards and who hasn't. When all the players have played their refresh card, that's when the end of the round happens, and there are a number of things that happen once we get to that point, and we'll go over those after we talk about what each of these little action cards do. The game will continue in that format until one person has reached 20 light, which are tracked by these little tokens right here. And then at the end of that round, whoever has the most light is the winner. There are a couple tiebreakers, but I'll leave those for you to investigate when you get your copy. So talking about each of the action cards in order, you first of all have the research card, and research will basically allow you to gain 1 light for every tech card you have currently in play. So after you've gained the light from your active technologies, you'll also be able to draw 3 cards from the technology deck, choose 2 of them to keep in your hand, and return the other one to a discard pile. Then you'll also be able to manufacture any technologies. And as you can see here, technologies have a cost of resources on them to actually put them into play. You can add these technologies either to your race or to one of your ships. These yellow borders are going to be ones that are tucked underneath your player board here. The green ones here will actually be placed up here like this so that it kind of matches that green ring under there. And each one of your ships can have one kind of ability, but your boost or your ship upgrades, your ship modifications, they have a number of upgrades that are shown on the bottom on this yellow line. So your big ships can have 3 upgrades, middle ships can have 2, and your small ships can have 1 upgrade. And they're basically put down below, while the green ones are placed in these spots right here. So that's your research card. Next, we have the mine action. And the mine action basically just allows you to gather resources from all of the places that you have your mine, whether it's on your home world or on any of the planets out here that you have placed an extractor. So, for example, let's just say that this has been turned over and we have explored that planet And later on, we have also put an extractor on that planet as well. And then we play our mine ability. The mine allows us to gain these resources, which is 1 white and 1 purple. And then this one down here on my home world allows me to gain another purple. And so that would be a mine action. The construct action allows people to construct ships and extractors. So you can build ships from your colony ship, wherever your colony ship is, by paying the resources that are on your player board. Extractors don't cost anything to build, but they can only be built on planets where you have a ship. So you could build an extractor right there for free, but you can only build 1 extractor per turn, generally speaking. Ships that you would purchase have to go in your colony ship area. So if I wanted to, I could spend a white and a purple and build one of my mid-sized ships right here, just like that. The trade action is another action where you can actually get more resources. So you're going to be able to pick 2 of these actions that are out here. You can also pick 2 of the same. You don't have to pick 2 different ones. So the first one says that you gain 1 white resource, so your trade turn could be just gaining 2 whites. Or you can trade 2 whites for 1 purple, or you can trade 2 purples for 1 orange, or you can trade 2 oranges for 1 light. So that is actual points. You also, at the end of your trade action, after you have chosen 2 of these actions to carry out, you'll also choose 1 person to get 1 white resource from the supply. You don't have to give it to them. It comes from the supply, and you get to choose whoever gets that. But that's your trade action. On your refresh action, you're first of all going to unexhaust all of your action cards, and you'll heal all of your ships. So if your ships have taken damage in combat and they have some of these tokens on them, you'll be able to, whenever you play your refresh action, take that damage away and heal all of your ships, and you'll get any of your any of your action cards that you've played back up into your hand and use them on a future turn. But you'll also get to claim light, or basically victory points, when you play your refresh action. So for every planet that you control on the outer ring, you're going to be able to get 1 light. But if you control a planet like this right here, where you have resources and all that good stuff, you'll be able to get 2 points for planets on the inner ring. So if this were the situation, I would be able to gain 1, 2, 3 light right now whenever I played my refresh card, because I have control over this planet on the outer ring and this planet on the inner ring. And then finally, your command card is going to be what allows you to move your troops and attack with your troops. So if let's just say that my opponent was over here and he had a couple of nice looking ships out there, and then I had maybe some, let's just go for it. Let's say that I had this right here, and I played my command card. Well, in turn order, let's say that I had my turn first, I would be able to move my ships into an area. So basically it's just 1. All of your ships have a base movement of 1, but you can give them ship modifications and so forth to give them more movement if you want to. So I have 1 movement, I move into there. Let's say that I want to keep my small ship back here. So what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to roll attacks against these guys. But because I was first, I have to move first. If we both played command cards, we would both roll dice against each other. But only people who play the command card actually get to roll dice and attack. So if I was the only one to play their command card, he wouldn't be able to move out of there. I would just be able to attack if he wanted to move out. Maybe he doesn't. So everybody that plays the command cards roll dice. I'll basically roll 3 dice for my big ship and 2 dice for my small ship, so that would be 5 dice altogether. And I'm looking for attack strength. All right, so attack strength are that symbol right there, but there is a symbol that looks like that right there, which is an exploding die, which means if I roll that, I get to take it and roll it again, and it counts as an extra hit. So that's what I would have rolled here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means I get to do 5 points of damage to his ships. Small ships have 1 hit point. Mid-sized ships have 2 hit points. Large ships have 3 hit points. So I definitely did enough to take both of these guys out. When you take out ships, they go to your graveyard. And once you have, in a 2-player game, once you have 4 enemy units on your graveyard, you can return them to their owners and get 2 light. Now, once I have defeated all of their aerial units, if they have an extractor on the planet and you have a big ship in orbit, you can orbital bombard, which means that you're going to roll the attack dice, and you're trying to get at least 1 hit to destroy their extractor. I got the 1, so the extractor's gone. It goes back to them, and later on, if I want to, I can put my own extractor on that planet. When you play your refresh card, as I said before, it stays on the table while all the other cards that you've played come back up into your hand. Once both cards have been played out, or rather when all the players have played their refresh cards, the end of the round happens, and the first thing that happens is the board rotates. The inner ring is going to rotate 90 degrees, but the outer ring rotates 45 degrees. So we'll rotate the outer ring like so. And then this will rotate 90 degrees like so. Then whoever was the first player token will go 1 in the clockwise order. So in a 2-player game, the other person becomes the first player. And then anybody who has ships in here get to generate light for each ship. So in this particular case, I would be able to gain 1 light. If anybody had reached 20 light during the round, we would then check to see how much light everybody has. Whoever has the most light is the winner at that point, because somebody reaching 20 triggers the end of the game. But that's generally speaking how you play first light. All right, so that is last light and how you play it. So, final thoughts. Does it feel like a 4X game?
3.25X game.
3.25X game.
Yep. You missed the exploration portion of it.
What?
It's most, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
What are you exploring? All right, 3.5%.
Man, this
3.5X game.
Full X.
All right.
This is a full X. I really think that he was able to grab every single one of those 4Xs and pack them into a 2-hour game.
Indeed.
At full player count. Now, this says 60 minutes
60 minutes,
here.
it says.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it. If everybody's playing it multiple times, and at some point everybody's going to know exactly what they're doing, turns are going really fast. Your first game, as per usual, it's not going to be 60 minutes.
Sure.
It's probably going to be an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on how slow everybody's grokking everything, or how fast everybody's grokking everything. I would say at most, with full player count, you're talking 2 hours. And for a 4X game,
oh, absolutely.
that's something else.
Yeah. And the only reason I say 3.5X is because your exploration portion of this game is done in the first 20 minutes of the game.
Sure.
So,
all of those discovery tokens have been turned over at
all
that
the
point.
discovery tokens have been turned
all
over.
the planets, you know what all of them produce. So I get that. But it's there.
It's there.
It's definitely there.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the cool things about it is that you're not still exploring and you're not still discovering things at the end of the game as with some 4X games.
And there's not things that are still hidden that never got discovered.
Right.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about the game, though, is that at some point in the game, there's no more hidden information.
That's true.
You pretty much have everything out on the board, and you pretty much are just straightforward with it. So I think it is definitely a 4X game. and it can take only an hour to 2 hours to play.
Agreed.
That's huge.
That is very huge.
I'll go with my first pro. Variable setup of the board. I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah,
Variable
for sure.
setup of the board where each planet goes. The colors of each planet are going to change every time you set up the game. What discovery tokens are in those open space areas? That's going to change every game. The layout of the board changes from the different player counts.
Yep.
I just really think that this is a game that did variable setup really well. And it's not that difficult. Sometimes with variable setup, there's so many different things that you have to do and go through. It takes longer, but I didn't find that with this game.
Yeah, and I don't want to detract from that at all, although I will say with the variable setup, it would have been nice if either the planets had been numbered or if there had been tokens that represented the planets that could be shuffled and then placed, because variable setup is picking out of a big box of planets and just putting planets out there. So the mix of planets could be whatever based on who's picking them out of the plastic box. And I'm the kind of person that's like, I would prefer to have a bunch of tokens, place them out there. Oh yeah, this planet goes, and then they just kind of rock.
Yeah.
That's the only piece. I feel like the planet's placement could have been a little more controlled.
Sure. No, I get that. I think that would be... There's a number of different things you could do that way as well.
Sure.
You could make scenarios out of it. You could make...
Well, no, I don't even mean that. I just mean...
you could. You
sure,
don't
you
have
could.
to, but you could. I mean, having that as a base rule gives you more design space to play within.
Sure.
All right.
What else you got
what about
for
you?
pros?
Oh, what, me?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
No, all right. Well, I think we've already talked about this one, but my second pro was that it captures the 4X feel with amazing clarity and simplicity. And
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I think that this has been such a successful 4X game, is because it does itch or scratch all of those itches that a 4X gamer is going to want, but it does it with such simplicity. Not that it's a simple game to play,
Right.
but it's so streamlined.
Yeah, it's very,
It's
very streamlined.
so streamlined, and that was just a huge pro for me, is that it captures everything you want from a 4X game, but it does it so simply.
Yeah, and I think that would lead into my first pro. My first pro is those action cards.
Yeah.
And everybody having the same action cards. I really love you're playing down until you play your refresh card, and you play your refresh card to get everything back. And then once everybody's refresh card's down, then that triggers everything. But I really like the action cards and only having the 7 different actions and only being able to do them in certain amount of times. That's kind of what leads to that streamlined nature.
And it's all simultaneous.
Yeah.
You do it all at the same time, so there's not a whole crap ton of downtime as you're waiting for player A to go through all of his stuff, and then you're sitting here, player E, and you got to sit through 4 other people's turns.
Sure.
That's just alleviated by a simple choice of making it simultaneous action selection. It's a great decision.
Agreed.
All right, my next pro had to do with the tech cards. The tech cards I thought were a great way to emulate a tech tree without having a tech tree, which is really what I think people want in a 4X game. They want some type of technology tree that will make them different than everybody else. Yep. And the tech cards were such a great way to do that.
Yeah, 100%. That's another pro for me as well.
You have so many combos that can happen from those tech cards. And as I already said, it makes each player different from the other person. Even more so than just variable player powers, because there are variable player powers in this from the very beginning of the game, but tech trees just kind of make that grow a little bit more. It makes you even more different.
Well, it expands that.
Yeah,
expands that difference. And that was my next one. The tech cards are one for sure, a pro. And then, of course, the asymmetric players, factions. And once we get more of those, that'll be awesome, too.
Well, that's my next pro as well.
Yep.
Variable player powers are subtle enough, but they synergize well with the tech cards. you can really have some really lethal combinations
Sure.
with tech cards and those asymmetric player powers.
Yep.
But generally speaking, they're pretty subtle, and they're not. You have to really work at making them work well for you. Some of them are easier to get to work for you better. Others
Sure.
are harder,
Sure.
but they all work well.
And you might get the one that synergizes extremely well with yours, and you might get something different that you have
Yep.
to work with. So,
Yep. Lance did that to us, didn't he?
yes, he did.
He
He did.
tore us a new one.
I think he prepped the deck instead. But no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't think he prepped the deck. But
He didn't prep the deck. He's just played it 1,000,001 times.
yeah,
And when that
And he
combo
got
came
what he
up,
saw, yeah.
he just was able to play it to its nth degree. So great thing though.
I like being able to upgrade your ships too, and just each ship gets a specific you can have specific upgrades for them, and then it's nice to have your ships be different than other people's ships.
Yeah.
and fairly easily.
A guy that the last time I played this game, I played a 4-player game of it up at Comics Con, and he was able to get his mid-size ships to do everything that his large ships
Yep.
could do,
Yep.
but they were cheaper.
Yeah. Sure.
I loved that. I was like, dude, that is such a cool idea.
Yeah.
And he was able to do that with tech cards. He gave his mid-sized ships the ability to bombard, and gave him an extra die. And so it was just he didn't win, but I think he came in second place.
Yep.
And that was another cool thing about it. And it's not really one of my pros, but most of the time, I mean, the game that we played with Lance was like I had 5 points. Lance had like 23 or something like that, and you had 18 or 19. So
I think it was more
difference.
13 or
you did?
14 or 15.
There was a
I don't know,
huge
but
difference, but that was because his combo worked so well that game.
Yeah,
It was like a perfect storm.
Sure.
But generally speaking, you're going to have point totals that are just really clumped up. The game that I played, the 4-player game most recently, the winner at the end of the round had, I think, 23 points. Second place had 22. Somebody else had 19.
Yeah.
And no, somebody else had 20, and then I had 19. So it was like all within 4 points of each other. And it was just a really fun game. We were battling it out. It was just a great game. Really enjoyed it. Another pro for me was the rotating spinning board.
Yep, that was my next one, actually.
Love it, because it simulates the vastness of space and the close proximity of space all at the same time.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing, is it keeps everybody in the mix.
Yeah.
And
But then
all the time.
there are times where you're like, there's no way I'm going to get over there. 2 turns later, oh, wait. There
Yeah.
it is.
Sure.
I loved that.
Yep.
And it's a cool gimmicky type thing that draws people in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind if a gimmick has such a great impact on gameplay as this did. I don't want gimmicks just for gimmicks.
Sure.
But this gimmick, if we can call it that,
Yeah.
little spinny rotating board,
That's not a gimmick.
it's gimmicky.
All right.
It's a little toy factor of the game.
Well, it is, but it really does keep
Yes.
everybody together and
Yes.
it makes it so you don't grab your little corner of the galaxy
Exactly.
and
You can't
hide and build a defensive perimeter. You can't do that kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's all I mean. I'm not calling it a gimmick for a negative
Yeah.
purpose.
No, I didn't think you were.
It's a toy factor of the game that actually has a really positive impact on the
It
game.
is a really good mechanic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. My last pro for the game is the fact that that person, and it's a really small thing, but that personal goal card that you choose at the beginning of the game, it gives you an immediate direction to go for. It gives you something to work on immediately, so that you can feel, like you're accomplishing something right off the bat. You have something to work towards. It gives you that goal at the very beginning of the game that in games like this,
Interesting.
you can go in any direction.
Yep.
You can almost you have unlimited number of things that you could go do. But this personal goal that you're going to choose after you look at the board
Yep.
gives you direction. And I love that.
It does.
Something small, but I love the fact that it does that because it gives you something to work towards while you don't really know what else you're going to be looking for. So.
And that's the main. So that card's kind of funny because it's almost a con for me. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a pro and a con because the pro side of it is exactly that, right? It tells you where to go, where you're going to start your mission, right? Mm-hmm. This is what I'm going to do. Yeah. The con side of that is it's very possible to get one of those cards, to get a couple of those cards to pick from, and the planets line out, don't give you the quick race to those locations. Sure. So you may know that they're coming around the corner, but other people may be racing to get their card done much faster than you. Yep. And by the time the chaos ensues, you may not. Yours might be much harder to accomplish. Yeah. So, so that is a possibility. That's just because of the random variable setup, right? I mean, that could happen, and can happen.
I usually, like for example, this is almost a stupid example, but for example, in Ticket to Ride, I look at my tickets and I pick my tickets based on what I can accomplish at the same time.
Sure.
So when I'm looking at the board and I'm looking at the cards, I'm like, well, which ones can I grow and expand and kind of hit two birds with one stone
absolutely
at the same time? So that's what I'm usually trying to do. So I like it that the game gives you the ability to try to do that. Mm-hmm. But I totally get what you're saying. You can look at the board and you're like, well, crap.
Yep.
None of this stuff is easy, and it might be easier for this person over there to get to it before. But
then again, that might make you say, okay, well, I need to work on text right away, or I need to shoot to the middle right away, or I need to do something else. It's not the only way you can win for sure.
Sure.
But it can happen to you.
Yep, absolutely. So. All right, cool. Do you have anything else?
As far as pros go, no, I love the speed. I do like the fact that even though it's even though it's all simultaneous play, that when the combat card, the command card is played, that has to go in sequence, and it very specifically needs to go in sequence, just to make everything work.
But that's the only time.
That's the only time, and that could happen every round depending on who plays cards what. But typically, it might only be one or two people having to go in sequence and doing that. That's the time when everybody else gets to look at the board and go, okay, what's happening here? Yeah. So that works out okay. That works out good too. I like that card, and I like that everything. If it's rush, 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 I like that piece that gives you a little bit of a breather to see how the Space Symphony is unfolding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with that. That's a good point because it can almost, because it's simultaneous action selection, it can almost feel like a multiplayer solitaire game because you're just building your thing up and you're pushing your ships out and exploring where you want to explore. But at some point, when people are playing combat cards, you've got to stop and look at the board along with everybody else and say, okay, well, how is this going to work and all that kind of thing. So, it kind of pulls everybody up out of their own little game that they're playing, and it forces them to interact.
Seeing what's happening in the wider galaxy.
Absolutely.
And that is the one time where it gets everybody to do that, and I like it.
Yep, I do. I do too. Okay. All right, as far as cons are concerned, I only had one.
Okay.
I only had one con.
I'm double-checking my notes. I don't think I really have a specific con.
I don't think mine is very large.
Okay.
It's a very
well,
small
let's start with yours and see where that leads us.
And it kind of leads into, I'm just going to say it. It can come to an abrupt halt.
Absolutely.
The game can just go, somebody has 20, the game is over. And you're like, but I have so much more I want to do. I'm not ready for the game to be over with.
That's actually quite true.
I mean, and so that's my only real con, and it's not really a con per se. It's not really a flaw of the game. It's just something that I don't necessarily like about it because I want to continue playing the game. I don't want it necessarily to be over. But I think the thing that the negative aspect of it that I'm trying to pull out here is that some of those combos you can't stop this from happening. You can't stop it from happening because the combos are so strong that you won't be able to get in there and stop it. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of makes the game be over much more quickly than you want it to be.
Well, that game with Lance is a very specific game because he said the same thing that I thought as soon as he had it, because he had it quite early on, his combo, which just gave him a bunch of light every round, and he got to chain a couple things together. Yep. And after the first time he did it, or the second time he did it, I was like, uh-oh. And I think I even said it out loud, is we need to wipe out Lance, because that would have been the only way would have been if we had actually teamed up and tried to attack him. And in a lot of 4X games, that's actually what you do. But 4X games historically are longer. They're more drawn out, right? I'm seeing exactly what you're becoming good at, what you're doing on the board, who you're talking to, and you kind of know what everybody's doing specifically over a longer period of time, to where you're like, everybody can start to see, oh man, Sam's doing this.
That's going to be a powerhouse.
We have got to do something.
Right.
In Last Light, that can slip on by, or it can be because you're playing that multiplayer solitaire almost. You're playing exactly what you're doing, card by card. Did everybody get their cards done? Okay, cool. Here's my next card. I'm going to make some ships. Okay, cool. Here's my next card. That can happen to where in this game there's no time to absorb what his ships do and what he has for technologies and what this player does and how they're synergizing that. You're watching what's happening on the board. You're watching what you're doing. But that's the limit of your understanding.
So, I mean, you can work against this tendency by simply taking a few moments and looking at what everybody's playing, but that is going to take away from that quickness that the game has. And I think that is a huge pro for the game, that it is a very quick 4X game. It's, you got to put quick in parentheses because it's quick for a 4X game, but you have to kind of take back from that a little bit. Because I think
make sure there's
and again, I think that the game with Lance is a microcosm.
I'm not talking about that game in particular.
Right. It's an example of what we're talking about here. I think the reason it happened is because we didn't quite understand how the combo worked and how strong the combo worked together.
Oh, I understood.
But by the time we understood, it was too late.
Yeah.
We couldn't stop it at that point. We couldn't stop it at that point. So that's my only real con. And I don't think it's a huge con because I think those microcosmic situations that happen, like with the game with Lance, I don't think that's going to happen a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because there's so much variation within the game.
And that is my only, if you want to call it a con too, is just that chaos, is just that not knowing what everybody else is doing. Because in a fast-paced game, and a lot of fast-paced games, especially with gamers, you're like, I don't want to be the one that is slowing down the game, trying to figure out what everybody else is doing. I mean, there's a mental, I got to hurry up because everybody's waiting. They already got their cards face down, right? They're all ready for the next round. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out if your ships are going to beat me when I should just be playing a card. So you have to balance that, right? You lose some of the strategy with all of the chaos and with that speed. But at the same time, you gain a very quick, a very cool space combat romp and joy of a 4X game that gets over in a good amount of time. So, I mean, that's the difference in the game.
What are you willing to trade off for that, to have that kind of experience? You've got to trade off some of that stuff that you get in the other games that are longer.
That's exactly right.
So, absolutely.
One note on the two-player game. The two-player game has a really cool variant where there's a third army that's controlled by the person who has less light. That is a very cool, a very neat mechanism. And it changes the game significantly. And the reason it changes the game significantly is because you're not trying to race to have the most light, because that giant army and his giant army are going to make you pay for it. Like, there is a balance of, I want to be sneaky about getting my light, and I want to get there before you, but I don't want to do this and watch you run a huge army for for the next 4 rounds. So
it's almost like you're going,
yeah. So it
and then,
changes that game.
Boom! I win.
In the multiplayer game, you're like, screw it, I'm going for light, and
Right.
nobody's going to stop me.
Yep.
In the 2-player game, it changes that dynamic in a good way, in a really cool way, but it does change that dynamic.
Yep, absolutely does. That's a great note to make because I completely forgot about that.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it is. Playing in 2-player is a great way to play this game, which is really kind of unique.
Yeah. 2 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, it's like 2 to... It goes all the way up to 8 if you bought the other box. I mean, 2 to 8, and it's good throughout all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty daggum unique. All right, well, back to the ratings.
All right. 2 thumbs up. You're just going to go straight up.
I'm just going two thumbs.
I'm going to give
straight
2
up.
giant Star Destroyers up.
Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
It's not in that IP though.
Is that freaking? I don't think that's
that is
patented.
That is,
Come on.
They're going to have litigation brought up against them now. And it's all your fault.
Bring it to me. Whatever.
You kind of get
2
the
giant
idea.
spaceships
You
out.
kind of get the idea.
It's a great game.
This is a great game. It's a great 4X, and if you have been balking at playing something like Twilight Imperium 4 or something like that because you just don't want the time commitment that those games take, but you really like 4X games, this is your Huckleberry. Because this gives you everything that you've been wanting to do, wanting to play in a manageable 60 to 120 minutes.
Did we
Easy.
fail to mention that it's beautiful and it has a great table presence?
We did.
But
that goes without saying because they already saw that.
Yeah.
It has great artwork. It has great table presence with the planets. And it is a great game. If you've got the money for it, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money.
Right.
But that's up to you. But this is a game that I wholeheartedly can recommend to you for you to pick up if you want a light 4X game that scratches all of those itches.
Yep. More cards, more factions, please.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably coming.
Yep, probably coming, for sure.
Probably coming. All right. Well, that is it for a Two Dudes review from Last Light. You got a combined total of 4 thumbs. So all those alien species that have 4 thumbs, they just gave them all up.
That's right.
There you have it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
We'll see you later.